In the eyes of millions of viewers, Jason Statham is the embodiment of strength. Over many years, he has built his reputation through dangerous action scenes, breathtaking chase sequences, and the image of a hero who always gets back up after every fall. But at the age of 58, the story behind the spotlight is very different from what appears on screen. After decades of performing his own stunts, his body carries injuries, long-lasting pain, and marks that audiences rarely see. This is not only the story of a famous action star, but also the journey of a man who turned failure into opportunity, turned pain into strength, and used all those experiences to build the life he has today. Before becoming one of Hollywood's biggest action stars, Jason Statham grew up in a modest working-class family in the United Kingdom. His father held various jobs to make a living, while his mother was once a dancer and singer. Life was not deprived, but it was far from the glamorous image many people associate with his success today. From a young age, Statham was used to being independent. During his teenage years, he often accompanied his father selling goods on the streets and at local markets. This work not only helped bring in extra income, but also taught him important life lessons. He learned how to observe people, read the psychology of others, and react quickly in unexpected situations. Years later, Statham admitted that these experiences helped him develop the cool, confident, and grounded attitude that audiences see in his roles. Alongside street life, he found a passion for sports and martial arts. Kung Fu, karate, and kickboxing gave Statham the discipline he has always pursued. While many of his peers spent time on typical teenage activities, he devoted hours to training, improving his fitness, and developing self-control. These early years laid the foundation for the person Jason Statham would later become: tough, disciplined, and always ready to face pressure. However, at that time, he had not yet thought about Hollywood. His biggest dream as a young man lay in a completely different field: professional sport. Before becoming an actor, Jason Statham followed a very different path: professional competitive diving. This was not a casual hobby, but a journey that lasted more than a decade, during which he trained in a highly competitive and disciplined environment. Statham was a member of the British national diving team, competing in international tournaments and achieving notable results. In 1992, he placed 12th at the World Championships, a result that proved he was not just doing it for fun, but was a serious athlete. However, despite coming very close to the top level, he missed out on Olympic qualification twice, something any athlete would consider the ultimate dream. Those setbacks did not cause him to collapse, but they forced Statham to face a difficult truth: his sporting career would not last forever. And it was during this seemingly stagnant period that his life began to change direction in an unexpected way. Thanks to his athletic build, natural presence, and sporting background, he was discovered during a modeling casting. At first, it was only small advertising campaigns for fashion brands, but it became the first gateway into the entertainment industry. From dancing to diving pools, and then from the pool to the camera lens, Jason Statham began a new journey, one he had never prepared for, but which would go on to shape his entire future. Entering the world of modeling gave Jason Statham his first real exposure to the camera and the professional entertainment environment. However, it was still not his final destination. The real opportunity came when director Guy Ritchie was searching for faces with an authentic, street look for his debut film. Without the need for formal acting training or a polished image, Ritchie was looking for authenticity, and Statham was the perfect fit. Coming from the streets with a background in professional sport and a natural presence, he stepped almost directly into the film industry without much preparation. The role of Bacon in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, 1998, marked Statham's film debut. The movie was not only a success, but also introduced a completely new image of him, a man who could capture attention without saying much. Later, Snatch, 2000, further strengthened his position in Guy Ritchie's distinctive crime comedy style. From that point on, Jason Statham was no longer an athlete or a model. He officially stepped onto the path of acting and quickly found his signature in roles that were cold, sharp, and instinct-driven. It was the combination of real-life experience and Guy Ritchie's directorial style that laid the foundation for a new Hollywood action star, someone who would later become an icon of modern action cinema. As Jason Statham rose to fame, his personal life also entered a period of significant change. Fame brought opportunities, money, and a new status in Hollywood, but it also brought unavoidable pressure. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, he was in a long-term relationship with model and actress Kelly Brook. At the time, both were in the early stages of their careers and were considered one of the most attention-grabbing couples in British media. However, as Statham became increasingly busy with international action film projects, the distance between them gradually grew. Heavy filming schedules, constant travel, and the pressure of maintaining a public image eventually led to the end of their relationship after around 7 years. What is notable is that the breakup happened quietly, without scandal or media drama. But behind that silence was a familiar reality in the entertainment industry. The greater the success, the easier it becomes for personal lives to drift apart. Statham rarely speaks about his private life. He chooses to keep things discreet, focusing on work and increasingly physically demanding roles. This silence has made him even more mysterious in the public eye. A man who reveals almost no emotion, neither on screen nor in real life. But behind that calm exterior, his body began to pay the price for years of constantly taking on dangerous action scenes. As Jason Statham reached the peak of his action career, he also entered the most dangerous phase of it, performing most of his own stunts. This was not just a professional choice, but almost a statement of his style. No stunt doubles, minimal simulation, and always striving to deliver the most authentic experience for the audience. One of the most serious incidents occurred during the filming of The Expendables 3. While performing a scene driving a heavy truck on dangerous terrain in Bulgaria, the vehicle's braking system suddenly malfunctioned. The massive truck plunged straight into the Black Sea within seconds, placing Statham in a situation no script could have prepared for. He became trapped inside the cabin as water began to rush in at high speed. The confined space, heavy equipment, and water pressure made escaping extremely difficult. In that moment, every survival skill he had learned during his years as a competitive diver became decisive. Rather than panicking, Statham remained remarkably calm, controlled his breathing, and found a way to escape from the sinking vehicle. After being rescued ashore, what astonished the entire film crew was not only that he had survived, but his almost emotionless reaction afterwards. Instead of stopping the shoot or taking an extended break, Statham simply changed his clothes and returned to work as if the incident had been just a minor part of a normal working day. However, moments like this were not rare in his career. Across dozens of action films, Statham's body accumulated countless minor and major injuries. Repeated impacts to the ribs, neck and head, wrist and hand injuries from fight scenes, cumulative damage from high-speed chase sequences, and, in particular, long-term effects on his spine and neck joints. At the age of 58, what were once considered work-related accidents have become chronic pain. There are days when simply taking a deep breath in cold weather is enough to cause sharp pain in his ribs. Old head injuries sometimes return in the form of headaches and reduced concentration. His hands, once trained for on-screen combat, no longer retain the same flexibility as before, and his spine, which has borne the strain of decades of filming, has begun to show clear signs of degeneration. What stands out is that Statham rarely complains publicly. In the eyes of the audience, he remains the familiar Man of Steel. But behind the scenes, it is a body that has paid the price for the authenticity he has pursued throughout his entire career. And from this point on, the story is no longer only about an action star, but about a man learning to live with his own limitations. After many years of living at the intense pace of action filmmaking, Jason Statham began entering a different stage of life, slower, more stable, and more personal. This is when he was no longer seen only as an action star, but gradually as a family man. In 2010, Statham met Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. Unlike previous relationships that had attracted significant media attention, this time things unfolded more privately and with less noise. The couple built their relationship on mutual respect for personal space and an understanding of each other's unique lifestyles. For Statham, this was not only a romantic relationship, but also an emotional anchor amid a demanding work schedule and accumulated injuries over time. When he became a father, his life changed significantly. The birth of his son, Jack Oscar, in 2017, and his daughter Isabella in 2022, brought a completely different perspective on life. From a man used to facing danger, Statham began to focus more on simple things: time at home, family moments, and the sense of safety he had rarely experienced before. His roles in personal life gradually replaced the on-screen image of the hero. The hands that once performed fight sequences became the hands of a father, teaching his children to swim, playing with them, and simply being present with his family. This change did not take him away from cinema, but it did change the way he approached his work. More cautious, more controlled, and far more selective. After more than 2 decades in film, Jason Statham became one of the figures who helped redefine modern action cinema. Without excessive dialogue or flashy visual effects, he built his personal brand on authenticity, speed, and the sense of realism in every punch and every chase scene. In material terms, he achieved the status of an A-list star with tens of millions of USD in assets, valuable real estate, and global recognition. But even more significant is the influence he left on the film industry, a new benchmark for how far actors can go in performing their own action scenes and where the limits of on-screen realism should be drawn. At the same time, Jason Statham has gradually become an important voice in recognizing the role of stunt performers, those who stand behind dangerous scenes but are rarely acknowledged. He has repeatedly spoken out in support of giving them proper recognition in major awards, seeing them as an essential part of the action film industry. Off-screen, he has also taken part in several charitable activities and used his public image to support organizations related to children and health. Although not widely publicized, these contributions reveal another side of Statham, less talked about, but more grounded and lasting than the Man of Steel image on screen. At the age of 58, Jason Statham is no longer the young man throwing himself into every dangerous scene. He is a man who has experienced enough impact to understand that strength does not only lie in taking hits, but also in knowing when to stop, when to protect his body, and when to protect the people he loves. His legacy, therefore, is not only found in successful action films, but also in the way he has turned his own life into proof of resilience, discipline, and the ability to rise after every fall. Jason Statham's story is not one of perfection, but one of endurance and adaptation. From a boy growing up in a working-class environment to a diver who came close to the Olympic dream, and then to a global action star, every step of his journey has been marked by the effort to push beyond his own limits. At 58, behind the Man of Steel image is a body marked by injuries, and a life that has traded much to achieve authenticity on screen. Yet those very cracks are what define him, not an invincible icon, but a real human being who knows how to feel pain, how to rise again, and how to keep moving forward. What remains is not the punches, the chases, or the breathless action scenes. What remains is the way Jason Statham has turned his harshest experiences into strength to live, to work, and to become the most resilient version of himself. If there is one final message from his life, it is perhaps this: you do not need to never fall. You only need to always know how to stand up after each fall. If you found this story thought-provoking, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more stories behind the Hollywood spotlight. Perhaps the next story will make you see a star in a completely different way.